This podcast is hosted by RPP.
If you are easily spooked, creeped, or offended, this might not be the podcast for you.
How are you, Lana?
Oh my gosh, hi. Hello.
Hi.
I'm good.
Hi.
I'm good. I'm tired. I'm good. It's been too much going on.
We're a bit stressed out here today, and I think my fridge is haunted because we came into the studio and there was a big staff meeting happening because apparently there's just technical issues happening all over the station.
Yep.
And then we came in, we turned on our equipment and it froze, just the screen froze, and we thought, what is happening?
What's going on? And then we tried to turn it off and it wouldn't turn off. It said, no, thank you.
We had to switch it off at the wall. There is some weirdness happening at the station.
Yeah.
The station is haunted. That's well known.
Super haunted. I mean, like my sister came, a week ago and she was like, so who's that guy?
Right?
We were like, who? Sorry.
What guy?
She was like, well, actually, I didn't want to freak you out. She said to me in the car on the way home, she's like, I didn't want to freak them out, but he was like in the room with us. And I'm like,
Are you freaking serious?
yeah. I was like, Rose. She's like, well, I don't want
But
to
that's
scare you.
literally what people have seen in the radio studio, because we were in the podcast room, but in the actual radio station rooms,
The recording rooms there.
it is well known that there is like a ghost DJ.
Oh, great.
A ghost DJ.
He only plays Cher. No. No. And yeah, so my sister came with me to, so we could be on Katie and Chris's show last week, which was lovely.
Which was fun.
And my sister's a little sensitive, I'll say, to the spirit world. And she was like, oh, yeah, I could see someone kind of walking around. And this is before she kind of knew the story, because so many people have spotted it in the studio here, so it was very strange.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, I don't want to freak him out, but it was totally in the room with us. Is it in the room right now? So I guess maybe take mercury out of the microwave.
Yeah.
Let's chill out for a little bit.
Right.
I've had enough.
So what have you been up to this week?
Oh my God, I actually did do some very fun things this week.
Oh, yeah?
My sister was down because it was her birthday. And we went to see Wicked in Melbourne.
Fun.
It was fabulous. I went when it first came in like 2008. And it was just the best thing. I cried my eyes out. It was just so fantastical. And then I took my sister for her birthday and we were like in the dress circle up the top. 'Cause
Right.
like cheaper tickets.
Yeah.
And it was still fantastic. It was incredible.
Great.
Yeah. So
that's fun.
I feel like Wicked it's very musical theatre, but even if you're not into musical theatre and you know Wizard of Oz and you kind of have any interest, you'll enjoy it.
Something for everyone.
It's just a good show.
That's fun.
Yeah, the cast is incredible. The set and the costume, everything is just a feast for the eyes. So if you're in Melbourne or coming to Melbourne, go see Wicked. It is incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, what about you? What have you been up to?
I did watch The Pope's Exorcist on your recommendation.
Yes. What's the verdict? Because there's another one coming.
They set it up to be a series.
I'm so excited.
I mean, it was very obvious at the end. They're now like, this Batman and Robin of exorcism. And they're like, there's 199 other demons out there that you have to find. So we've got 199 other movies to look forward to.
You know what? I'll watch every single damn one.
I liked it. And he's funny. He's a likable character. I do have his book. I haven't read it yet.
Yes.
I liked it. I just always have a problem when they introduce like this family teenager dynamic. Like when they introduce the grumpy teenager into a horror movie, I do zone out a little bit.
Yeah, you're like, I know what's happening from here. Like,
yeah, it's just not relatable for me.
Yeah. So much so. My sister was like, you should watch Heartbreak High. And I was like, can't relate.
What? Why?
Teenagers. I'm sorry, you reach a certain point where you go, I just don't care anymore. It's awful. But yes, as soon as they come on the screen, it's like, all right, you're getting possessed.
Yeah, you're getting possessed. And I'm sorry, I was really bothered that the teenager, like, even though it was a storm and they lived in this Spanish, like, 12th century freaking freezing castle, she always was wearing like the tiniest little singlet top and the shortest of shorty shorts.
A little bit. How else do you know she's a teenager though?
I was like, dude,
Put some clothes on.
Put a cardigan on. Freaking what? So that did kind of bother me.
Yeah. Stop smoking cigarettes and put a cardigan on.
Yeah. But the mum was just the same. She also wore freaking no clothes. So it was just kind of, that was annoying to me.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
But I liked the imagery. I liked the characters. It was okay.
I think Russ Crowe does a really good job.
Yeah.
More credit. It got pretty cheese towards the end, which I love.
Yes. There was a high cheese factor.
Yes. But I'm so glad you liked it. Yeah.
I'll watch the next one.
Yeah,
I will watch the next one. One thing I do want to mention is the True Crime and Paranormal Podcast Festival.
Yes.
Sadly, this is in America. It's in Denver, Colorado, July 12th to 14, 2024. So if any of our American listeners are close to Denver or want to take a road trip to Denver, Colorado, it's a podcast festival with ethics and advocacy at its core. Families and survivors guide the mission. Tickets are on sale now. The hashtag is TCPF 2024.
That's awesome.
You got a fact? Facts from the freezer.
Facts from the freezer. I do. You don't think holes? You don't want to learn about holes with me?
Oh, I've got some dumb stuff to say.
You got some dumb stuff. Okay. Very quick, very simple fact. Fact from the freezer. See, I have to do it every time in my head.
I'm going to put it in the edit. Don't worry.
So, did you know that in order to increase the number of marriages and ultimately the population, the Lex Papia Poppaea,
Is this a country?
No, this is a law that came in Italy in 9 AD.
Oh.
It's a little while ago. And
It's an old law from Italy.
Very old law. And the law prohibited celibacy and childless relationships. So imagine that now. So the law was like, you can't be celibate and you can't have no children. You must have children.
Which century was this?
9 AD.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very long time ago. So yes, it came into law in Italy, but I don't think Italy was even formed then. It'd be what Italy
It would be
was.
the Roman Empire, wouldn't it?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, Roman general. Of course it was.
Which would make sense because they wanted Romans to populate the earth.
Imagine a law though, like it's very dystopian to think of it now. It probably more tolerable, not tolerable, but understandable back then. But imagine
it's like now. Oddly kind of like futuristic dystopian, isn't it?
Considering like there's currently, not currently, but for a while there's been movements of women refusing to have children. I saw this the other day.
I'm one of them.
But same. But I think it's in Korea or Japan, I can't remember, but there has been so much of this movement that there is now a new generation of primary school children that can't fill up grade 1 because there's just not enough kids.
It's too bloody expensive, apart from everything else.
Well, yeah, despite everything else, it's too expensive.
I can't even deal with a teenager in a horror movie that goes for 90 minutes. I don't want one in my house all the time.
Oh, and they're always there. Get away from it. Yeah, no. So I found that very interesting, and how times change. You know, look how a couple of thousands of years does for us.
It's that old cult thing, though. Like, you know, have the babies born into the cult.
Yes,
I really think that this goes back to just the Roman Empire just wanting to be the biggest empire that ever was.
Exactly right. And I say that like, it's so long ago, but, you know, a little shade to America at the moment. I think stuff like this is quite prevalent still in this time.
Yes.
Bringing back 1800 laws. Yeah. So there you go. People have been wanting babies forever and no. No. What's your fact?
This is very silly. So remember we were talking about Lord Sandwich?
Yes.
Love Lord Sandwich.
Love.
All of them.
All of them.
There's so many of them.
The stained glass of them.
Yeah. So according to history.com, one of the earliest known sandwich eaters was Hillel the Elder. So we thought that the sandwich was invented by a Lord Sandwich of England.
That was the
not
myth.
that long ago.
Yeah.
But we know that sandwiches were eaten as far back as the 1st century BC. Apparently, the Haggadah, a Jewish text read during the annual Passover Seder, recounts how Hillel made sandwiches using paschal lamb, bitter herbs, and unleavened matzo bread. And it also says, look, flatbreads have been around for freaking ages.
Yeah.
And the idea of rolling bread with a filling is ancient in Turkish culture.
Absolutely.
So it's not clear why the English politician John Montagu, aka the 4th Earl of Sandwich, became the namesake of the food that we call a sandwich. But it's often accredited to him. Legend has it that during a prolonged gambling session, the Earl requested meat tucked between 2 pieces of bread to eat without interrupting his game. So
Classic
Yeah.
British stealing. No, I'm kidding. I suppose like
it's ours now.
I suppose just the word in particular got coined,
Right.
to mean sandwich as we know it now. Obviously, there's for years and years and years been using flatbreads and stuff like that, but the name must have just caught on
Somehow. Yeah.
It is a fun word, I will say.
So it's technically still a bit of a mystery.
I love it.
So there was no fact. There's actually no fact in my fact. Sorry.
I've got barely a fact going on, so fine. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so last time we were here, we were talking about plague, 17th century. It's 1665. Shit is hitting the fan.
It's all sounding a bit familiar.
People are telling other people to wander and perish.
Wander and perish, that's right. Wander and perish.
And they had to say it to people's faces. They couldn't do it on Facebook.
Yeah, they couldn't be keyboard warriors.
And also that plague doctors, not a thing in England. Plague doctors, French, Italian, yes. England, no. Beak masks, not a thing.
Yeah, they became the pin-up girls of plague,
They really
basically.
did. They really did. Another thing, we just took it.
Yeah.
Took the sandwich, took the plague mask.
Everything. We'll take it. Thank you so much.
So let's talk about the conspiracy idiots.
Oh my God, fantastic. Yes.
So many people openly protested the concept of houses being locked up, not unlike the freedom fighters of yore.
Yeah.
In the book 1666, it is said that after one particular house was shut up, quote, residents of one particular house took issue with the enforced isolation and removed the sign and opened their door in what was reported to be a riotous manner. They then went abroad into the street with others.
Oh my God.
They said no.
No, we're not doing that. I mean, it's a super deadly illness that could make everyone dead, but no.
Yeah.
The logic is not here.
So if, just in case, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, I highly suggest you go back and we will give context to the Great Plague, which began in 1664. And when a house is shut up because it has people inside that have plague, they put a big cross on the door and they put a sign saying, God save us all.
Yeah, save us alls.
Yeah. Okay, so Daniel Defoe, who wrote the Journal of the Plague Year, said, this shutting up of houses was at first counted a very cruel and unchristian method. And the poor people were so confined, made bitter lamentations. Such a nice way to put it. I love him. He just writes in the best way.
Yes.
Complaints of the severity of it were also daily brought to my Lord Mayor of houses causelessly and some maliciously shut up. So I think what he's saying is sometimes they had shut up houses that maybe weren't plague houses, but they still had to go in and do the quarantine for the month.
Yeah, like we all have had to do.
But I think also what he's saying is, even for people that aren't conspiracy idiots, it did seem
A bit severe.
severe.
It was harsh, yeah.
Yeah. For those plague victims who had no home, or those that caught the signs early and wished not to contaminate their families, or those that were cast out by their families from the shut-up houses, which would have happened, they were sent to what was known as the pest house, and they went there by wagon or hackney coach for the more wealthy.
Oh.
Now, fun fact, if a hackney coach transported a plague sufferer, the coach had to be aired and was not to be used for 6 days.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they're pretty, like, on it, hygiene-wise.
Yeah. Look, when you don't have Glen 20, just open the
My
doors.
best friend. Yeah. A little sunlight.
The pest houses were rudimentary hospitals to house the sick and were known to be the last residence of the vast majority of those who showed the signs of plague. After all, there was very little that could be done for them.
So it's either stay home and perish or go to a hospital and perish.
Or wander and perish.
Or wander. Either way. Well, hopefully not perish. Hopefully get better. But I feel like going to a pest house.
We actually don't know a lot about the pest houses because I feel like they were so sort of quickly erected and probably cheaply, and I think that they were probably pulled down. We don't have any pest houses that we can go into as tourists now.
Yeah, right.
I think they were probably just very drafty, temporary buildings,
Yeah.
and there's just not very much of a record of them.
They probably weren't focusing on we need to write this down so much as we need to keep these people alive.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And apart from the bills of mortality, and
Not many rights.
sadly, the people that were writing diaries, like Samuel Pepys, he was too busy having dinner with the king. You know,
Having
he's
a
not going
pajama
to
day.
having a pajama day. He's such a legend. It was often preferable to send family members to the pest houses, as some people being locked up with dying family went mad.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Those with the distemper on the streets often lumbered about as though in a drunken state before expiring right out in the open. There's a lot of mention of this drunken state.
Haze. Well, I was just thinking, I'm like, when you're in a fever, if you don't know a person's in a fever, you look at them, you could be like, well, they might be drunk. Like you get flushed, you're sweating, it's hot, you're dazed, confused, like
You're not all there.
not all there at all. Yeah, I can see that.
Many tried to escape the quarantine by sneaking out back doors and onto rooftops. So I guess if you're in the middle of London or close, all these houses, they're very close together. So you probably, if you wanted to, maybe you would have access to...
Making a grand escape.
Yeah.
Being able to do it, because I imagine the security's not that strong.
Well, one family threw gunpowder at their watcher, burning him terribly.
Bruh.
Yeah.
He's just doing his job.
Why not with the old look over there?
Yeah. Come on.
Some families were not so nasty. One story in Daniel Defoe's book recalls a watchman that guarded an empty house for 2 weeks before he realised that the family had long absconded out the back windows.
Oh, poor guy.
I know.
There's been no bowls of vinegar this week or last
But
week.
this is like what I'm saying about the difference between Cambridge and London. London's just full of dickheads. Like no one cares about anyone. But in Cambridge, everyone's like, "Are you okay? Can I bring you some bread?" You know, like Cambridge, they looked after each other. It's a smaller city. London, no one gives a
No
shit.
one cares. Yeah, there's too many. God, that's so funny. That sounds like a Monty Python skit.
Well,
Pretty much.
it basically is, isn't it? So in the Cambridge houses, they were locked with a chain and padlock, according to the Great Plague, A People's History. Some people had extra house keys made so that when they handed over what was presumed to be their only house key to the watchman, they would wait for him to go run the errands because he was the one to get their food.
That's right.
And take their chance to escape. So they'll be like, I've got a spare.
The only one.
The only key that's ever existed.
It's just not possible, actually, to make a second one. I don't know.
So let's talk about life in lockdown.
Oh, triggered.
Yeah. Trigger warning. As the pestilence grew, people began to skip church in an attempt to social distance. When they did go to church, the air was full of smells such as cloves, flowers, burning herbs, or smelling salts. But a lot of times they couldn't go to church anyway because even like the members of the clergy, that they pissed off to the country.
Yeah, they're gone as well.
Gone.
It would have been quite nice to go and smell something lovely at church, but probably pretty empty service.
I guess like a lot of those times, like people could just go there and pray, but you wouldn't be able to go to a service as such because the priest had pissed off.
So sorry, I'm getting rid of that.
It's okay. Sufferers of plague are often written as acting drunk or in psychosis, staggering in the streets and seeming confused. And after that, burials were to take place between sunset and sunrise.
Okay.
Families were not allowed to attend.
Oh, all right.
This is in the early days of the plague. You know, a lot of people were dying. They were collecting up the bodies and they were kind of sanitizing it by doing it just outside the city walls.
Yep.
And, you know, trying to keep people away from it.
Yeah. I suppose we're still in the era of knowing that it's airborne, so they're probably trying to keep people away.
There's that too. There is also that. Corpses were sewn into bed sheets or, if you were wealthy, a nicer material like a linen or a silk or something.
Of course.
If they were poor, they were often taken away in the death carts naked.
Bring out your dead.
Bring out your dead. People were buried, much like in the 14th century, in large plague pits by the pest houses on private properties or in the churchyards. In London, the grounds outside the walls were often consecrated in order to bury more bodies.
Wow. So they're just going along with like the holy water.
They literally we need more space. It's too congested in here. We've got to get out and make more plague pits.
Would that mean like a large majority of London today has just hundreds and thousands of bodies under it?
Oh, yeah.
Just fertilising away. Probably not anymore.
Plague pits under London are part of daily life.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's just, London
It's
today.
kind of like a national joke of like, oh, we want to get a swimming pool, but, you know, the
oh my God.
the people digging up the yard came across a plague pit.
Yeah. We have to like deal with volcanic rock here, and they're like, I'm sorry, there's just too many bodies, too many bones. Oh my God. Imagine the contractors being like,
well, the thing is, a lot of contractors, like if they come across something that's like an archaeological find,
of course,
they're supposed to tell the local university and they're supposed to stop work so that the university can carry out an investigation.
Yeah.
A lot of contractors will just kind of like put some dirt on that because they want to get on to the next job.
Yeah,
they don't want their work to finish, to. So sometimes they'll find like bits of old Roman plates and things like that, and they'll be just like, "Didn't see that.
Don't worry about it."
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Like an old, 2,000-year-old axe or something.
I saw sorry to go off track. I saw a video of a lady who accidentally bought a like ancient Roman head statue, like bust, at a flea market. It was like a 2,000-year-old statue.
It could happen.
And this is Europe. This is just what happens. I think it's so baffling to us in Australia because we just don't have the same man-made architectures and historical things we do in Australia. It's just very different. Yeah. It's just fascinating. Just at the flea market.
Oh, just going to flea markets in Europe it's like you find treasure.
You must just have the most amazing collection of things and clothes from living in London. Oh my God.
Well, I lived in Bath.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. But also I have a no knickknacks policy, which I'm kind of failing at because it's just like it's hard to clean and, with the cats are always stealing stuff. So let's talk about fake cures. In the early days of the pestilence, many people turned to astrologers or so-called wizards and fortune tellers who hung signs on their doors advertising their talents.
Wonderful. This is what I would have been doing had I been in this era.
I can see it. I can actually see it.
I wouldn't have lived long, but I would have done it.
People started to use amulets, crystals, and star charts in an attempt to shield themselves from certain doom.
Wow.
In addition, fake doctors offered their services selling pills, drafts known as plague water, which is even mentioned by Samuel Pepys. He says that his aunt gave him a draft of plague water. And powders such as ground up bones, with marketing that promised their treatments were the best kept secret and guaranteed to protect one from the disease.
Oh my God.
One such doctor promised to see poor patients at no fee. However, when it was discovered that he would only see patients for free in order to sell them hoax physics, so they would call medication physics.
Oh, okay.
People became angry and declared on the streets that this doctor was a liar and a thief.
I mean, when you don't have Yelp reviews, I suppose you just go on the street and Yelp.
Yeah, exactly. You literally Yelp.
You just Yelp about.
So this guy was like, oh, I can help you. I'm a doctor. I will help you for free. Come into my office. And then here are my secret
things,
medications, my physics, for a small fee you can have one, but I'll see you for free.
Yeah, I'll totally see. It's very like
no consultation fee, but you have to buy my stuff.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you.
Multi-level marketing,
right?
Vibes.
Yeah, tell your friends, and they tell their friends.
Yeah, and get so a reference code for bones, bone powder, draft water.
Daniel Defoe points out that even if they demanded and were given pills, waters, and other so-called cures as fakes, much like the theory of taking worming medication made for sheep or injecting ourselves with bleach for COVID, they would have offered no worth. So, like, no one had a cure, obviously. Like, none of these doctors, they thought they had the medicine, but they did not. Daniel Defoe said, quote, "One thing I could not help observing, what befell one of the quacks," they called him quacks,
of course,
"who published that he had a most excellent preservative against the plague, which, whoever kept them, should never be infected or liable to infection. This man, who we may reasonably suppose did not go abroad with some of this excellent preservative in his pocket, yet was taken by the distemper and carried off in 2 or 3 days."
Oh.
So he's been kind of shady here. So he's like, ooh, mustn't have taken your secret remedy that day.
Must have skipped a day, love.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Shady.
So shady, I love him.
In the midst of this hysteria, the Lord Mayor declared that the College of Surgeons create a free pamphlet offering professional advice to the people on how best to protect themselves from the plague. Although doctors of the day were still relying on methods such as bloodletting and leeches, their ideas of social distancing and quarantine did seem to work. It was found that houses that quarantined did stop the spread in that area. In addition to aid with the prevention of miasma, bad air, doctors and residents alike often kept lozenges, cloves, or herbs in their mouths.
There you go. See, And I'm sure this information is not going to get misconstrued at all.
No.
Never. I love that cloves. Cloves are good for like gum and teeth problems.
Are they?
I think like...
I have heard of like hippies sticking a clove into a bad tooth.
Yeah, I think it's just more of a pain thing. I got told it once. And it's like you've got a clove in your mouth. So it's kind of like you pay attention to that more than the other thing, I reckon.
Right.
That's interesting that it...
Yeah, you're right.
So long ago. It
Yes.
still passed down. There you go.
Let's talk about some remedies. So medicine was believed to work only in conjunction with prayer.
Of course.
We are still working on the basis of the body maintaining balance. So remember we were talking about in the 14th century, it was the balance, it was the 4 humours. So it was,
Yes.
I always forget what they are. So it's phlegm, blood, I think it's yellow bile and black bile.
Yeah.
So they always had to be in balance with each other. They're still kind of using that terminology.
Okay, yeah.
Bloodletting was one method of healing the body, relieving it of blood to balance itself. One doctor wrote instructions to, quote, let blood in cases of great distress until the patient faints.
And she's done. All right,
Yeah,
thanks.
she's done.
Thanks,
We're
everyone.
balanced.
She seems so balanced.
Because plague struck all levels of society, from aristocracy to the working class, it was believed that plague was an act of God and was a form of punishment towards humanity. It was also believed that if God had created a disease, he had also created a cure, and it was the job of man to find it.
Okay. I mean, a good way to think about it, I suppose. They need to find the cure rather than just praying it away.
Yeah, it's almost like kind of that thing of let's go on a pilgrimage to find the cure to the pestilence that God has sent us. Like he's testing us.
Yeah. Little do they know that like walking in the sun is going to actually help them a lot. And they'll be like, we found it. It's like, no, you're just
healthy.
You're just healthy now, but okay, cool.
The Lord Mayor orders for the streets to be kept clean. It is a fair assumption that if our environment is clean of waste and filth, then does it not follow that we minimise our chances of becoming ill?
Good logic.
It's good logic. That's the logic they were following. In 17th century England, the streets would have been quite disgusting. In The Great Plague, A People's History, it is written about Cambridge, for example, that, quote, each entrance to the town is marked by a common dunghill, as well as the castle. Household waste, manure, rotting vegetation, and dead dogs and cats were deposited on the dunghills, and the stench from these mingled with the smell of blood from fair lanes on Slaughterhouse Lane, where the butchers went about their business. So gross.
Super gross.
Like, I'm guessing, like, there's no one coming on Wednesday morning to get your bins.
No, the lovely garbage men are not coming. They're not here. They're not. Ugh.
They just had, like, these either just piles of rubbish or ditches. They would just throw them in the ditch.
Yeah, it's just lining the streets. It's insane.
With filth.
I struggle to open the fridge when a vegetable's gone off, let alone walking down the street and then smelling all that. All that.
We can assume that the state of London was not much better than that described above, but in larger quantities on all counts due to the larger population therein, and there was more people in a smaller amount of space.
Yeah.
It was probably disgusting, and they probably threw a lot of stuff in the river.
Oh, for sure.
Just gross.
Those Thames.
Yeah. In addition to cleaning up the streets, the Lord Mayor also orders that any stray dogs, cats, ponies, donkeys and rats that roamed free in the city were to be culled.
Oh, wow. Not donkeys.
Right? Donkeys are the sweetest.
I mean, all of them, but donkeys. Come on.
Yeah, draw the line, man. There is an interesting theory behind this. If you'll remember back to our first plague episode, where we followed the recent research according to Dorsey Armstrong, and she said, if the rats die, the plague hits humans because the fleas no longer have their primary source of food.
Yeah, we're screwed.
So when the fleas have no living rats to bite, they starve, and out of necessity, they will, in theory, bite humans.
That's right.
So it makes sense that with the culling of the dogs, the cats, the ponies, the rats, the starving fleas turn to human hosts. As a result, it's potentially true that people inadvertently made the plague worse by relocating the fleas from animal to human hosts.
Isn't that terrifying? Could you imagine being like, we're gonna clean up, it's gonna be great, everyone's gonna be much healthier, and then all of a sudden it just gets 10 times worse, and there's no visual cue of why.
Yeah, I suppose that in theory it could work, but you'd have to sacrifice that first wave
Yes.
of fleas biting the people, and then those people die, and then the fleas die, and it's all good. But you kind of have to think, did they make it worse?
Yeah, did it get worse before it got better? And also, how many people died for this reason?
Poor people suffered most from the plague, as they often could not afford to leave London. If they lost their jobs, they sometimes became watchers and nurses, increasing their chances of illness. And I suppose they probably would have become, like body collectors and
any job you could get, I
grave
suppose.
diggers, those types of things. It was rumoured that nurses who were called to homes to attend the sick, as well as watchers, were in the practice of smothering or poisoning their patients and then putting them out for the plague carts in the evening. Meanwhile, robbing the homes of jewellery, clothing and linen.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but I am shocked.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Oh, that's horrific.
Because bodies from quarantine houses had to be hurried to the pits for burial, there were no autopsies. The only person required to decipher whether the person died of plague was the searcher. And because they would be paid per corpse, corruption was probably rife. Now, would you call this the Cobra effect?
I was literally about to say, is this some Cobra shit? Because,
Right.
oh my God.
Right?
People take advantage. Don't pay them. Well, I suppose do pay them, but... Oh, yeah, I'd say this Cobra effect.
Yeah, I think they need a salary.
Just nice, clean, crisp. People are corrupt. I mean, humans by nature are just greedy.
Give them dental.
Get some Medicare in there.
Sick
For
leave.
Christ's sake.
Also, if the body was poisoned and still displayed plague buboes or a rash, there was no way of knowing if they were murdered. So they were like, it's because the searchers, or they could poison a person and go, well, you're going to die in like 3 days anyway.
Yeah, I was just helping
Let's
you
poison you now. I can move on to the next house because there's an abundance of houses to search. There's always going to be people dying of plague.
Exactly. And yeah, I suppose the visual signs of poisoning aren't going to be as obvious if you're blotchy and buboed and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately clever.
Although it is not clear whether this actually happened, in any case, nurses began to be dispatched on behalf of the mayor so as to be officially registered to homes.
Okay.
So they started just not giving this job to anyone. Like, you had to be like an official nurse
representative
of the city.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. Now, I want to read an excerpt of A Journal of the Plague Year by Daniel Defoe. And this is just my favourite part of the whole book. And I've condensed it down. I've taken out a few pieces because it goes for a while. But it's such a great book. And I love the way it's written, and I love the old world language.
Yes.
And I'm guessing that because it's 300 years old, the estate of Defoe is not going to come after me.
You'd hope not, no.
I'd be surprised.
I would be very surprised, shocked and surprised.
Dismayed.
Dismayed.
Here I saw a poor man walking on the bank, or sea wall, as they call it, by himself. I walked a while also about, seeing the houses all shut up. At last I fell into some talk at a distance with this poor man. First I asked him how sick people did thereabouts. Alas, sir, says he, almost desolate, all dead or sick. Here are very few families in this part or in that village where half of them are not dead already and the rest sick. He then pointed to one house. There they are all dead, said he, and the house stands open. Nobody dares to go into it. Poor thief, he said, ventured in to steal something, but he paid dear for his theft, for he was carried to the churchyard too last night. Then he pointed to several other houses. There, says he, they're all dead. Of course, my computer has to do a security scan while I'm reading this.
It's just making sure you don't get caught by the Defoe.
Right. Copyright infringement noted. He pointed to several other houses. There, says he, they're all dead. The man and his wife and 5 children. There, says he, they're shut up. You see a watchman at the door. And so of other houses. Why, says I, what do you here all alone? Why, says he, I am a poor desolate man. It has pleased God that I am not yet visited, though my family is, and one of my children dead. How do you mean, then, that you are not visited? Why, says he, that's my house, pointing to a very little low-boarded house, and there my poor wife and 2 children live, said he, if they be said to live, for my wife and one of my children are visited, and I do not come home. And with that word I saw the tears running very plentifully down his face, and so they did down mine too, I assure you. But, said I, why do you not come at them? How can you abandon your own flesh and blood? Oh, sir, says he, the Lord forbid. I do not abandon them. I work for them as much as I am able, and blessed be the Lord, I keep them from want. And with that I observed he lifted up his eyes to heaven with a countenance that presently told me I happened upon a man that was no hypocrite, but a serious religious good man. But how do you live, and how are you kept from the dreadful calamity that is now upon us all? Why, sir, he says, I am a waterman, and there is my boat, and the boat serves me for a house. I work in it in the day, and I sleep in it in the night. And what I get I lay down upon that stone, says he, showing me a broad stone on the other side of the street, a good way from his house. And then, says he, I halloo and call to them, till I make them hear, and they come and fetch it. Well, friend, said I, how can you get any money as a waterman? Does anybody go by water these times? Yes, sir, says he, in the way I am employed there does. Do you see there, says he, 5 ships lie at anchor, pointing down the river a good way below the town. And do you see, says he, 8 or 10 ships lie at the chain there, and at anchor yonder. All those ships have families on board, close shut for fear of the infection, and I tend on them to fetch things for them, carry letters, and do what is absolutely necessary, then they not be obliged to come on shore. I seldom come on shore here. I come now to call on my wife, and hear how my family do, and give them a little money which I received last night. Poor man, I said, and how much hast thou got for them? I've got 4 shillings, said he, which is a great sum as things go now with poor men. At length, after some further talk, the poor woman opened the door and called, Robert, Robert. He went to the great stone, which he showed me, and emptied the sack and laid out everything by themselves and then retired. And his wife came back with a little boy to fetch them away. She was so weak she could not at once carry in all in, and the weight was not much either. So I pulled out my hand, which was in my pocket before. Here, says I, give her a little more comfort from me. So I gave him 4 other shillings and bid him go lay them on the stone. I have not words to express the poor man's thankfulness, nor could he express it himself, but with tears running down his face. And I parted not that year with money that I thought better bestowed.
Wow.
That tells us a lot about what's happening at the time.
It's like a little snippet into what life was.
Right,
Wow.
exactly. And just people just figuring it out.
Yeah.
Somehow, making it work.
Yeah, making life work, looking after your family. And it's very nice that he also gave. Like he saw an opportunity to help someone and just did it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's nice.
Aww. That's lovely. I like that. Thank you for saying that.
Well, you won't thank me for what I'm about to say next.
Oh, no, I've just seen it. I've just seen the title. Oh, no.
So as well as death from plague, people also suffered great loss from tragedy in childbirth. Many pregnancies ended in death for both mother and child, with no access to midwives due to social distancing and neighbours that either would not or could not help. There was also poor nutrition and pre-existing illness.
Just Make it 10 times harder.
Well, this will. If a woman with plague gave birth, it spelled almost certain death for her baby. Even if it was miraculously free of plague, there was often no one left to care for it. Keep in mind that people lived in close proximity to each other, and with events and industry shut down in the summer of 1665, it would be commonplace to hear a woman in labour or to hear the screams of pain from those suffering from plague.
Ugh.
So it's like, even if a woman with plague has a baby and the baby's okay, well, who's going to nurse the baby? You can't nurse a baby if you've got plague.
No, and imagine how susceptible they would have been to illness.
Right.
Like, days after being born.
It would have been a miracle if they could have survived.
It happened. We are all here. People survived. It is just, I wonder what, you said a woman pregnant with plague. I'm like, I wonder if, she got the plague early. Oh, she probably wouldn't survive that long, I suppose.
No, because the plague would have taken you between 2 and 7 days.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just so curious about what it would do to the baby, but I suppose it's not long enough to do anything except for, obviously, death. It's so, awful, horrific, interesting.
The worst days. In the latter part of August 1665, the bills of mortality showed an alarming leap in the number of plague deaths, with almost 40,000 from the 22nd of August to the 26th of September. So just under 5 weeks, 40,000 people.
Jesus.
Pepys wrote that the bodies were now being drawn through the streets in daylight hours instead of night, as was the custom.
Yeah, too many.
There's too many. They can't just do it at night. They have to do it at all hours.
Ugh.
He says, quote, talking with him in the highway comes close by the bearers with a dead corpse of the plague. Lord, to see what familiarity is, that I am almost come to see nothing of it. So people are getting used to it.
Yeah. So it's just a daily part of life now.
Oh, another plague corpse.
Oh, okay. Bye. Oh, it's Jerry. Oh, I like Jerry. Damn. Oh, well. Oh.
He says that the bells toll 5 or 6 times a day to signify a death or a burial. However, by September, the bells have to be rung so often that they stop altogether.
That is so grim.
It's so depressing.
It's so grim.
On the 31st of August, 1665, Pepys says, quote, in the city died this week 7,496, and of them 6,102 of the plague. But it is feared that the true number of the dead this week is near 10,000, partly from the poor that cannot be taken notice through the greatness of the number, and partly because of the Quakers and others that will not have any bell ring for them. So what he's saying is that in addition to people dying of plague not being counted due to status, we also have those not being counted due to religious segregation.
Yes.
In early September, he says, quote, this day I am told that Dr. Burnett, my physician, is this morning dead of the plague, which is strange, his man dying so long ago, and his house this month open again, now himself dead. Poor unfortunate man. By September of 1665, according to Pepys, it would appear that the quarantine rules have now been somewhat loosened, though it would not appear by law, but by lack of manpower to police it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which reminds me of our later lockdowns where people just kind of, they got over it and they were just like, I'm going out.
I'm doing it. I'm getting a haircut. I'm doing it, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, no, the rules, though.
I'm going to a protest. I'm going to a march. Pepys says in mid-September 1665, quote, and having been taken a copy of my Lord's letter, that was probably my Lord sandwich.
Damn it, sandwich.
He's always talking about it, my Lord sandwich. And having been taken a copy of my Lord's letter, I away back again to the Bear at the bridge foot, being full of wind and out of order. I love how he talks. And there called for a biscuit and a piece of cheese and gill of sack. being forced to walk across the bridge, across the change, and the plague being all thereabouts. And Lord, to see how I did endeavour all I could to talk with as few as I could, there now being no observation of shutting up of houses infected, that there to be sure we do converse and meet the people who have the plague upon them.
Okay. So just no fucks given.
No.
They're like, no,
it's everywhere
we're
now.
done.
It's everywhere now.
Isn't it such a funny thing, like we saw it now, quarantine, is people just reach a point where they're like, I actually don't care anymore. And it's like, well, you should.
Yeah.
But they just
Don't.
The numbness, like that mental state of just, no, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, insane.
Yep. So many parallels.
So many.
Daniel Defoe recalls rumours of cart drivers dying in the process of driving bodies to the pits. In some cases, leaving horses to walk through the streets alone, dropping corpses on the road as they went. It's so grim.
That is such a scary visual.
It's bad. There's no one to care for the horse. Corpses
Just strolling along.
The driver's
falling
dead.
Off. Yeah, the driver's dead. That is some Silent Hill nonsense. I'm not it.
One story suggests that such a cart fell into a pit along with the horses. It's hellish.
That is horrifying. Okay.
People light fires in the streets, believing that fire was the only way to cleanse the air, like they did in the Black Death of the 14th century. At home, they kept their fires lit to drive the miasma from their hearth. Defoe suggests at one point in his book that the rich fundraised to donate to the poor in London to make sure everyone was fed and housed. I have not read evidence of this elsewhere. So we can only take this as a possible occurrence.
Yes.
The plague begins to subside. After the calamity of September 1665, the plague deaths listed in the bills of mortality began to come down. It was observed that more plague sufferers were overcoming the disease and recovering. Industry resumes. Many of those that catch plague only now have a mild case and recover soon after.
Okay.
So we're building a resistance.
Yeah, getting that immune system.
Yes. Wealthy people begin to return from the country in early 1666. Some try to ease quietly back into London society as though they've just been away for an innocent visit to the country, perhaps to see family or to take the sea air for their joints.
I love no one talks about it.
I wasn't fleeing the plague.
No. I love London and Camp. No.
But those that stayed understand that they fled for their own safety. This was worse for medical professionals and members of the clergy because these are the people residents turn to for security, faith and support. Pepys sees these people with a degree of mistrust and shades them accordingly. Quote, February the 4th, Lord's Day. And my wife and I the first time together at church since the plague. And now only because of Mr. Mills coming home to preach his first sermon, expecting a great excuse for his leaving the parish before anybody went and staying away until all had come home. But he made but a very poor and short excuse, and a bad sermon.
Oh, the shade.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
He's shady. So
And a
shady.
bad sermon.
So good. I think I'll end this chapter of plague, for there will be more.
Oh, yes.
Until we next visit with a somewhat optimistic, if hedonistic, view of life from Samuel Pepys. I think we can all take something from this quote from March 1666, a time when the pestilence was well and truly subsiding. Quote, I find Mrs. Pierce and Mrs. Nip come to dine with me. We were mightily merry. The truth is, I do indulge myself a little more the pleasure, knowing this is the proper age of my life to do it. And out of my observation that most men that do thrive in the world do forget to take pleasure during the time that they are so getting their estate, but reserve that till they have got one, and then it is too late for them to enjoy it with any pleasure. Which I take to mean that when there is a great plague and you have wealth and some youth, have an orgy. For tomorrow, it may be too late.
I'm suspecting that Peeps was maybe in a certain club that we've spoken about.
It's highly possible. He makes so many little allusions, like he makes little clues to him having threesomes.
It's wild.
Like, oh, Mrs. So-and-so came over tonight. We were very, very merry and stayed, blah, 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 blah.
I like the message though. Like, if you're young and you can,
have a good time.
Have a good time while you can.
Peeps was all about a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And, vests and wigs.
You know what? Ultimate dinner partner. Like, ultimate dinner
so
guest.
Fun.
Up on the list. Done.
Well, I think we shall leave it there.
Fantastic. Every time you talk about plague, I'm just baffled and it's shock and awe every time. Fantastic story. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And until next time, everyone, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. It's our favourite place to be at you know what? You take over.
I think my fridge is haunted. No, at I think my fridge is haunted. Also, at the time of filming this, it is a little bit earlier than what this will release, but we have started a tipping service. If you'd like to show your support for the podcast, if you enjoy the stories we write, it is a lot of work. And as Gemma said at the start, we have full-time jobs. We love doing this and we want to make it a career. So if you feel so
and
inclined,
we want better equipment.
Oh my God. You can't see this, but my two house lamps are lighting us right now.
It would be nice to have a new camera and maybe a website.
And
so,
Yeah, and we'll be able to have more time to provide more content and all that. The drill now. So if you head over to our Instagram, we've got a link in our bio, or just go to Linktree and look up at I think my fridge is haunted. And the first thing that pops up is a picture of us. And it says, buy us a coffee. And you just hit that. There's some suggested amounts. You can literally just buy us a $3 coffee, or you can put in a custom amount and you get to write a message to us as well. So if you do, maybe we'll read some messages out. Write a fun fact or something ridiculous. Something correct us on something. I don't mind. But it would be wonderful if you could tip. That would be great. Great.
Until next time.
Until next time, everybody, be creepy.
But don't be a creep.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, Like Mother, Like Murder listeners. I am Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
We are the hosts of Like Mother, Like Murder.
We bring you the good, the badass, and the crime.
Each week, we bring you stories from missing and murdered
to survivors and women who empower you.
And of course, some mom talk sprinkled in.
Check us out wherever you get your podcasts at Like Mother, Like Murder.
And give us a follow on social media so that we can say hi.
Okay, love you, bye.
Okay, love you, bye.